Hello all, this is James Johnson, aka Sulfurblade, and I am back here with Ultimate Admiral Age of Sail. Let's go ahead and get rid of the disclaimer before I start getting too wrapped up into the game. So I really love this game. We're going to go ahead and load my last save. This is a game that's currently in alpha, and the only way you can get it is from the developer at their website. It's not on Steam or anything like that, and it is very much in alpha. It's still completely being worked on. It's not a finished game. But it's so good. I mean, it feels so polished. It feels so much better than a lot of polished games feel. Or not. How do I put this? It feels so much better than a lot of new released games are at this current point in time while it's in an alpha phase. So I'm really excited about where this game is going to go when it actually makes it to release. With that being said, we're taking part in the British campaign. We just finished fighting the Spanish down in the Caribbean, and evidently this new chapter has moved us up to deal with the French and the Americans. We're now in the Atlantic Ocean. And we seem to be, well, kind of off the coast of Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and maybe even Virginia a little bit, possibly. And I want to point that out. So remember where we are here. We're on the east coast of the U.S., but we're on the southeastern coast of the United States right now. Traditionally, while it is a cold coast because the Atlantic Ocean brings the jet stream down from the Arctic, or no, it's the other way around. The Atlantic coast actually brings the warm air up, doesn't it? And the Pacific brings the cold air down. Yeah, so it's not even like the coast is making things cold. But it is funny when we go into this mission. Let's hop into it. You'll notice that the whole coastline is just filled with snow. And to be honest, this coastline wouldn't be filled with snow. Not at all. This would be, winter time. You might get down into the 40s or 50s. Definitely not cold enough to create snowy conditions in this area. So we can take 280 points of ships. I definitely want to take the Dobasi Domasine. That's our frigate, and it's pretty darn awesome. I think we're going to take the Wat Algier. And that leaves us another 60 points. So I think the Lord Zell will be our last ship. Unless we decided to get rid of the Wat Algier and take the Martin Lundquist, then we could take the Litchfield, and we don't have another seventh rate frigate to really pair with the Litchfield, do we? So I think it would be better to go with the Lord Zell. Alright, here we go. Let's jump on in. Crew shock, why? We seem to be having an issue on the Lord Zell already. What is wrong here? I don't know what these icons mean. Maybe we're missing an officer? Are we undercrewed? Nah, we're not undercrewed. Alright, we're going to pause it real fast. So we're supposed to get the Nassau to a safe zone and the Hillsborough to a safe zone. So these are these two troop transports that we're escorting. We've got the French coming in at us over here. What are we looking at? Ooh, those are some bigger ships, I think. We've got a French 5th rate, the Batilde. We got a French 4th rate, the Lambitspin. I can't even begin to say that. And another smaller French ship. That's interesting. So the mission scale. I've been watching another YouTuber doing these same missions, and he has a smaller fleet than mine at this point in time, kind of smaller ships than what I'm currently running. And he actually had, I think, 2 5th rates and a 6th rate, where I'm facing a 4th rate, a 5th rate, and a 6th rate. So I've got a slightly bigger ship to deal with than he had. And I also have slightly bigger ships than he had. So evidently the missions do scale, which is kind of interesting to know. And where are the Americans? There's supposed to be Americans chasing us. I don't see them behind us. Anyway, the Zabisi, which is I like to think of it as our flagship. She is not as fast as the Watt Algier. The Watt Algier is actually faster, a little squishier, but more guns, but not as big of guns. So the Zabasi is definitely a more tankier, slightly slower ship. And Lord Zell, being a 6th rate, should technically be the most maneuverable here. The whole purpose of this mission seems to be to get these two troop ships to escape. And when we're dealing with naval battles, the easiest way to escape is to use the wind to your favor. So as we can see, these troop ships, if you highlight them, this outer ring here that we're looking at is their points of sail. And their worst point of sail is where this red is, and that's also where the wind's from. And that's to be expected because this is a square. These ships are running square sails, and square sails like to run with the wind. Well, a little bit off the wind, but pretty much with the wind. Where the more lantine your sails are, the more triangular sails you have, the slightly better points of sail you can have in different directions into the wind. Like if we this is again a frigate, so it's going to have very similar pattern here. Is the 6th rate back here any different? No. And I don't expect this frigate will be any different either. So every ship in my fleet has pretty much the same point of sails. But it's much harder to chase somebody into the wind once they've made distance going into the wind. So with that being said, I'm going to slightly navigate so that we're still in this light green area, but we're getting as close to being into the wind as possible. So this is what you would call sailing close haul, or this is as close haul as a square-sailed ship would run. If you had a more lantine-sailed ship, you'd probably sail, further this way into the wind. But because we're running square sails, we're going to go about right there. And that does take us to the safe extraction. So since the whole purpose is to get these ships out of here, we're going to sail them this way, which means that they're going to come, their closest point of approach to this enemy French fleet is going to be right in this area. So this is the main part where we have to be concerned with picketing. And then once we picket, we're going to want to push these ships or change their trajectory this way, away from the direction that these guys are going to be traveling. So that's the game plan, and that's what we're going to attempt to do here. I'm actually going to send the Lord Zell to try to follow these two in case. I can't seem to give that order right now. And we should tell these guys to drop their sails and go full speed. Alright, there's the American ships back there, so they are back there. I could almost send the Lord Zell out back to deal with them. And I'll ignore him. I have to admit, I would like to get a hold of this fourth rate. But the last time I fought a fourth rate, it was one painful experience. Right, this is typically not a maneuver you want to make in front of the big guns of a fourth rate, but we need to maneuver in front of this line to force them to keep heading south. So we're turning around to cut them off and keep them forced south while these guys run. Now at this point we're going to change a little bit to a better point of sail, because at this point we're already upwind from these chasers. They've already have to angle into the wind if they want to come up on our left side. So the left side here is a wall, and to get on our right side they have to come through our picket. So I could pretty much say that this mission is already successful. We have successfully gotten our ships away. There's nothing that the French can do at this point to catch up. Now the question is, do we want to continue to fight these ships? That fourth rate is it's a powerful ship. It outguns us. Do we just want to turn and run and save our repairs? It's definitely worth thinking about doing. In fact, I think I might do that. I don't think you get any extra victory points for sinking ships in this particular mission. We could run through and try to sink the little American ships. We'll just continue on that way. Let's speed up the game progress a little bit here. See, a mistake somebody could have made on this mission is to try to run this way because the wind is with them. And if you run with the wind, it's actually probably easier for these bigger ships with lots of canvas to set an intercept course, because they too have the wind. So when you run slightly against the wind, you make it much harder for these for ships to set an intercept course. So when escaping, always think about running somewhat against the wind in a sea battle like this. Lots of people think that their best way to escape is to run with the wind, and that's actually counterintuitive, because most of these big naval vessels that are designed to fight are going to be really fast with the wind. find it interesting that the big French ships are using only 3/4 of their mast right now, and they're trying to catch us. It's like, why don't you have all your sails down? What are they attempting to do here? It's almost like they want to fall in line. Wish I could get information about the ship when you look at it this way, like its max speed and stuff of that nature, its tonnage. That would be interesting to know. Because while I'm not, actually Horatio Nelson, a Horatio Nelson from back in the day would have some information like that about their opponent. They'd be able to look and be like, oh, that's a French, fifth-rate Dejanus class, which is probably, has this much speed, etc., etc. They would have, well, it's not like they would have a rough estimate of the speed these ships could go. Yes, speed was a concept that is more modern, but they still had the concept of speed back then. In fact, knots is the type of speed that they used. They would, if I remember right, they tied knots on a line. They put the line in the water, and the number of knots that was in the water, depending on the speed of the ship and the angle, was a rough estimate of how fast the ship was, and that's where the term knots came from. Was from just knots on a rope that was thrown alongside the ship to get a gauge of the ship's speed. Alright, so this hasn't been the most exciting mission. I understand that. The fight was very little, not compared to every other mission that we've had in this game up till now. The fights have usually been to the death, right? And here we are, basically running away from the enemy, not really engaging. But I think that's it's a little more realistic. You're not going to fight every sea battle. You're gonna pick and choose your fights when you can, and I chose not to fight this one because there's this fourth rate here, and it outguns us. Alright, the Hillsborough has begun escaping. The Nassau is next. Alright, we have victory. The Hillsborough and Nassau have successfully gotten away. And fleet casualties, we lost 13 crew in the total fight. They lost 45 crew, so it was a ever so minor victory on our part. But we should not have to spend much in repairs or anything like that. So I'm wondering what this mission is going to pay out for simply running away. Captain Admiral. Captain? Oh, Captain exclamation mark. Admiral been informed. Then Admiralty reinforce our squadron with some new ships. They really need an English speaker to do some of this translating for them. Other captains are already prepared and provided justification for our own requests, so only 2 of those ships is without new appointment yet. A smaller corvette and a frigate. Which one you'll choose? Commodore Stewart. Captain Admiral's been informed that Admiralty reinforced our squadron with some new ships. So, other captains have already prepared and provided justification for our own requests. So only 2 of those ships is without new appointment yet. A smaller corvette and a larger frigate. Well, you know, it kind of makes sense to take the frigate, right? What's the corvette like, though? I mean, is it a good corvette? Or, we'll take the frigate, I suppose. Brass, ordinary guns. Remote operations. Okay, we're getting research here. Captain, as you wondered, from now you authorized for access to Data-Gois-class frigates, all seized by our bravest navy not more than a decade ago. So I now have access to buy evidently French frigates that were seized from the French about 10 years ago. So these are probably the latest and greatest cutting-edge frigates here that I have access to buy. Um, 16 March 1782, Guatemala, Spanish troops under Mathis de Govez, in an effort to dislocate British settlements along the Gulf of Honduras, captured Rotan on 16 March and then quickly took Black River. Damn Spanish. Guilty by default. We have 5 appeals from loyal traders for a last week. They typically the mutineers sloop just robbing merchant ships when Royal Naval officers dreaming about Strange while they think his admiral don't watch their side. Wow, okay, I can't even begin to understand what that's trying to say. Admiral don't watch their I see all this thing, I'm an old man and I don't want my name. We're mocked in House of Commons and they will not solve this issue, Admiral. That's a side mission of some sort, evidently. Another side mission. Ontario Express, your efforts was productive. All important cargo were delivered. So I got 71,900 cash, 6 prestige, and 1 experience for that mission where we didn't fight. I can't complain about getting 72,000 money, basically. That's welcome money. I can definitely use it, I'm sure. With that being said, let's start using it. couple of repairs. Let's replace the few troops that were killed. We didn't take the Lindquist, we took the Watt. And the Watt has 5-minute needs. The Lord Zell is missing an officer. That's what that icon was all about. The Litchfield seems to be missing an officer. Well, let's fix that. We may want to think about upgrading our troops' weapons. Do we have better weapons that we can upgrade to, is the question. Land pattern 78 musket and bayonet. There's a ton in the shop. Reload seems to be less, but I think it's definitely more range. And it's definitely more melee. And really range, I think, is the big thing for these land battles. Alright, and we can actually rename these officers, can't we? So this group of soldiers we will put in command of the legendary general Sambo Panda. This wounded in action, huh? Interesting. We will change John Chamberlain here to Durand Litchfield. Douglas Barrymore we shall change to Gigi Papa. Really like some of these names. And how about Trooper Hensel? Again, if you're wondering where I'm getting these names from, these are subscribers who have subscribed to my channel, whose subscriptions are public, which means I can actually see their name and stuff, and thus I'm throwing you into these episodes. So if you want to get your name on a ship or on some troops, if you want to be the general of some of these land troops, stuff like that, go ahead and subscribe. And yeah, I'm sure we've got lots of stuff to name in this game. So there's lots of names already floating around here. Now we do have an overabundance of money, and I feel like we need to use it. We do have a career point to use, and I want to... want to make research cheaper. So we've got 2 of these 5th-rate troop ships available. And it seems to make 6th-rate Porcupine class. You know, I don't think I've seen a Porcupine class before. What is this ship about? 500 port and starboard. Okay, let's compare that to, say, our 6th-rate sloop of war. So that is more armor. What are we looking at for speed? So 12.6 to 13.5 at best point of sail. Compared to the Lord Zell, that's a lot faster. So, and it's got more guns. This is an interesting little 6th rate here. How does it compare to the Cerberus that we've had access to for a while? It's faster than the Cerberus. It's not necessarily... It's got less armor. It does have more guns. It's an interesting ship. I think we're going to get one of these big troop transports, though. It screams that it makes sense at this point in time. Alright. Now we need to put some troops in there. Marines are also known as naval infantry, are typically an infantry force that specializes in the sport of naval and army operations. Grenadiers, elite assault troops, above average physical size, have been considered important for the original Grenadiers, and in principle height and strength remain the basis of selection for these picked companies. Let's get some Grenadiers. They sound fancy, like they're tougher. Of course, we want to give them decent weapons. So these land pattern muskets. We're going to go with a big group of 300. Now we need to give him an officer. We'll go with another group of 300 here. If we have the weapons to do so, I think we do. And we'll throw some supply troops in there. They seem to fit. We'll put these guys, we'll give David Martin command of the supply troops. Don't want to use an awesome officer for the supply troops. I don't think I'm going to be fighting with him. Alright, so we effectively doubled our army in size with that ship. Yeah, pretty happy with that. And we still have a lot of money left over, though I don't want to just spend it recklessly without, knowing what I'm spending it on. Maybe I might need to save some money for a new fourth rate that'll become available for me later on, and I'll want to have that extra money to be able to purchase it right away. So I feel fine about having this 102,000 sitting there in the bank. I feel pretty good about where we are. So yeah, what have we done in this episode? We have doubled our army. We've bought a new 5th rate Diana class troop ship, We did that mission to escort the troop ships out of danger against the French, where we took barely any damage. And in doing so, we actually got a nice big large payday. And so that's actually why we're probably sitting so financially well off right now, is because we got a big reward for pretty much doing nothing. But anyway, I think that's where we are in this episode. We'll continue on in the next episode with the next mission, which will probably be tomorrow. Hopefully you're enjoying this content. If you are, please leave a like and subscribe. And until the next time, all. Peace.